Right. Okay. So just a quick recap what we've done in the morning for those who waking up in the States and joining us. So we've gone through the importance of receiving Holy Communion, and we started looking into the real life of Jesus in the soul that lives in the divine will, and now we're carrying on with that. So we got into that part from the PhD dissertation of Father Joseph, which talks about what happened, that real life in Jesus in us. So it sheds more light on the theology behind it, which Father Bruno gave a very beautiful teaching at the end of the last session. So Father Bruno, if you read that to us, I mean, it is this is a PhD dissertation written for the scholars. So to examine, so it's heavy, but we'll break it down for you, Father.
Luisa relates that Christ bilocates his operation and life in the soul of the human creature while preserving its creaturehood. He does not replace the human creature's substance, as he does that of the eucharistic species, lest it cease to be a creature altogether. He preserves the creature's personhood by allowing it to continuously participate in his own eternal operation, substance, and qualities, thereby effecting union with the three powers of its soul that is so perfectly united with him that it operates as he does in the Trinity. In this union, the Most Holy Trinity operates in the soul of the human creature as it operated in Jesus's humanity.
Yes, so quite heavy, but Father Bruno explained about the accidents and the substance, and he explained that the substance of a bread is replaced by Jesus. He explained it. Father Bruno, can you explain the difference here? Here, the substance of us is not replaced like the bread. It's us and God operating. Because if it's replaced, we may appear like the person we used to be, like the accidents of the bread. But the accidents of the bread, as Father Bruno said, they are resting on the new substance, which is Jesus, appearing as what was a bread, what was wine, appearing as, for example, if it's a white, it's wheat, but if it's white, if it's I don't know how it was baked, he will appear like these properties, but the substance changed. But here, Father Joseph is saying, with the real life of Jesus in us, what he takes is he will keep the substance the same, but he will have Christ coexisting with us. Father Bruno, do you want to have a go at explaining it?
Sure. So, I mean, let me just say publicly that I'm not a professional theologian. I'm just a priest, and all I know is what I learned in seminary, basically. So if I say anything silly, do correct me. I'll be very grateful. And
you won't say anything silly, Father. After we heard you.
No, but these things are very, very deep. But I will try not to say anything which I think might be wrong. Obviously, I mean, I'm here to try to lead souls to a deeper knowledge and love of the truth. I think that what Father Iannuzzi is describing here is something which is analogous to, which means similar to, and in a sense, set alongside a point that I'll come back to in a second, set alongside the mystery of the hypostatic union. Now, hypostatic union is a very big and scientific sounding word, but it basically describes how Jesus is fully divine. So he has the complete divine nature, but he also has a complete human nature, interestingly equipped with one of the most important parts, if not the most important part of human nature, which is a human will. So in Jesus, there are actually two wills, the divine will and the human will. Both obviously are perfectly in harmony with one another. So, but he is fully God, fully having the divine nature, and also fully possessing a human nature. And those two natures are contained or held, if you like, under the unity of the one person who Jesus is, because Jesus is not two persons. He's not a divine person and a human person. He is a divine person. And Jesus's human nature, the union of that with his divinity, because of this hypostatic union whereby whereby the human nature is held in tandem with the divine nature under the one person of Jesus Christ, under the one person of the Word, that union is unique, okay, because there has never been and never will be another instance of a created thing, a human thing, being united to the Godhead in such a profound and deep way. Now, that I think is an important thing for us to remember. But what Father Iannuzzi is saying, I believe, is that through the gift of living in the divine will, we are able to experience a divine element in our own actions, of such perfection that it resembles, in some loose way and in some relatively remote way, but it resembles the perfection of the hypostatic union. Now, this needs to be understood very carefully. I'm not trying to say that we share in Jesus's hypostatic union. It's not like we experience the same thing, even in a little way. No, we don't experience the same thing. But the perfection with which the divinity works through and in the soul of the person who has the gift of living in the divine will is the highest degree of perfection that the divine power, God, can ever bestow upon a person who is not divine. So this is what we are given to participate in. For example, something maybe slightly similar has been said of Our Lady, that she stands in the hypostatic order. And this partly because of her relation to Jesus, in as much as it's from her that he took his human nature. But there is more to it than this simple her donating a human being somehow the origin, at least in part, of Jesus's human nature. There is more to the mystery of the divine maternity than that. And to illustrate that, it might be sufficient for me to remind you that Jesus described the conception of himself in the womb of Mary as being properly the result, or something which was very, very closely connected to her gift of life in the divine will. It was that more than anything else in the Blessed Virgin Mary that actually brought about the grace of the incarnation, because there was a kind of correspondence between Jesus's, or should I say, the Word's presence in the depths of the Trinity, and his presence in the Blessed Virgin Mary, in as much as she was united to God through this gift. There is a kind of correspondence there, which is a very big mystery. So if I can slightly change tack just for a second, at Fatima, or in the cycle of revelations at Fatima, Our Lady said to one of the seers, I think it was Lucia, Our Lady said to her that she wanted to arrange these souls who are devoted to her and consecrated to her, and implicitly received the message of Fatima. She wanted to arrange them like flowers around the throne, if you like, of God. We could also say the altar. And that idea of being arranged as a kind of heavenly court around God is an important concept here, because God's greatest work that has been and could ever be is the incarnation of the Word, is Jesus Christ. That is the greatest work that God could ever accomplish, outside of the Trinity. And that is the first thing, if you like, that God wanted from all eternity. But after Jesus, in which God is supremely glorified because of this greatness of this act of love that he is, that has given origin to him, that decision of God, if you like, to bring about the union between something created and something and the divinity in a uniquely perfect way, which is the hypostatic union, so that something created is now caught up in the very love of a divine person with God in a personal and proper manner, because Jesus's humanity is his, part of his person, if you like, is part of who he is. So something created, Jesus's soul, Jesus's body, Jesus's intellect, and all the faculties and stuff, all of that is now caught up in this love of a divine person for God himself in a uniquely perfect way. But after that, God wanted to array around Christ those who would share in, shall we say, various degrees of perfection in his glory and in the glory of God that has been revealed in Christ. And basically, one of the main ways in which this is being done, or has been done from all eternity in God's will, is by the gift of living in the divine will. Because in this gift, although we remain individual persons, and that's important because that is the environment, if you like, that is the reality that is necessary in order for God to be able to say that I have communicated my love and my life in the highest possible degree to a created person, okay, namely us, Mary first, and then all the other saints after her. God has decided in his love, for the sake of Christ, to bestow upon us a very, very, very deep sharing in this same life, which is God. And basically, this is what happens when we receive the gift of living in the divine will.
Thank you, Father. That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So we'll dive more into this mystery. It's a heavy mystery, but we'll dive more into it. So if we read the next one, the next one is where are we? The Eucharistic tabernacle and the tabernacle of the divine will. So Father Bruno, if you read for us, and Father Yarek and Father Jan, if you want to jump in, just unmute yourself and come in anytime to contribute. Father Bruno.
Oh, excuse me. Sam, maybe you can read, because I've got the phone ringing here, sorry.
Oh, the phone ringing, yes. So the Eucharistic tabernacle and the tabernacle of the divine will. Okay. All my aims and cares, all my aims, my cares, and my interest are in making my divine will known and in making it reign in the midst of creatures. Then will each creature be a living tabernacle of mine, not a mute, but a speaking. And I will no longer be alone, but I will have my perennial company. So very, very concise line. I just took that because if I take more, we will fill all the pages of that diary entry. But he says, all my cares, all my interest is to make of you my living tabernacle. And that tabernacle is a living, is speaking, is someone who corresponds to my love, who keeps me company, unlike the irrational bread and wine that do not keep me company. He is there alone, He's there alone. But in us, he's not alone. He has our company. And here is we're talking about the servant of God, Vera Grita. The servant of God, Vera Grita, is from Rome, and she is at the moment Father Joseph Iannuzzi is translating her book, The Living Tabernacle. Father, are you okay to read now? Yeah, okay.
The servant of God, Vera Grita, 1923 to 1969, received the gift of living in the divine will under the name of Living Tabernacles. The Lord communicated the work of the living tabernacles to her. The wine and the water are us, you and I and you. The will of my Father is this, that I remain in you and you in me. Together we shall bear great fruit. Jesus' words to Vera, take me with you. Jesus wanted to enter Vera's life, her family, and the school where she taught. He wants to go where we go, to live our family life with us, and to reach out to those who live far from him by living his divine lives in us.
So Vera used to be a teacher at school, and I don't know if Vera knew about Luisa Picaretta. I mean, she's Italian, so maybe she knew about her, but or maybe not. I don't know, because she did not call it the gift of living in the divine world. She called it living tabernacles, but maybe she also referred to it as divine world. But Jesus specifically focused on the aspect of a living tabernacle, that she is his living tabernacle. Yeah. And it's very interesting. Jesus gave her the analogy of the drop of water in the wine that we talked about. You know, wine and water, water and wine, you and me together. And when Vera forgot, when she used to teach the children, she forgot to call on Jesus. He says, you didn't take me with you to the kids, to the children, you know? So Luisa Picaretta, in her letters, I recommend everybody gets hold of the letters of Luisa. They are amazing. It's not something to read from cover to cover, but it's something to dip in and out every time, because you see the humanity of Luisa. Now, if you read one of the letters of Luisa, she says, in one of the letter 121, she says, the divine will wants to be called. Yeah, we cannot take it for granted. We're living in the divine world. Everything we do is automatically in the divine world. Yes and no, because we've done our prevenient act in the morning to call on Jesus, but we need to do our part in remembering as much as possible throughout the day to call Jesus, to call the divine world into our acts. So see what Luisa says. So I'll read you the whole letter. It's not, Luisa wrote very concisely, very shortly, so many words, so many concepts in a few words. But that's Luisa for you. You know, if it wasn't for Jesus, we would have had the volumes in 10 pages or so. God knows. Yes. Okay. So my good daughter, Luisa, is writing. So we don't know who she's writing to, but she's referring to the person, my good daughter. I beg you to live always in the divine world. Surprise, surprise. Luisa, of course, she will say that. Of course. I pray that Jesus will seal it in your mind, on your lips, in your heartbeat, in the movements of your hands, and even in your breath. We talked about that. These are the accidents, the substance that will become Jesus in us. So she used the word seal, and we know that word seal is you seal everything with what Jesus did, so that you take that divine version of his life into us. This fiat is the divine will, in another way, in action. Wants to be the prime act of all your acts. Exactly. She's explaining what the divine will is about in just one few words. Both natural and spiritual. Did you see that? Both natural and spiritual. So our natural body work is part of the work, part of the accidents that will become Jesus. And when we call it, even in our little acts, it feels recognized by the creature. When we call it, it makes feast. And in a delirium of love says, the creature called me. Imagine that. She gave me the first place. So I can place in her acts, the acts of the creature, the insignificant acts, that now God will make them everything. In her acts, my sanctity, my love, my likeness. So in it, Father Bruno explained, it's somehow we become a space for the divine to dwell. So Luisa is saying, I can place in her act myself, my divinity in her. And it wants to give also its beauty and wisdom. It wants to give of its own, but wants to be called. But wants to be called. Wants to be called. So it needs to be called. We need to remember to call the divine will into everything we do. Before you eat your food, at least say, Jesus wants to eat and I want to eat with Jesus. Or come divine will eat in my eating. At least say that. Yeah? Before you do anything, call on him. Because as Luisa said, it wants to be called. And then she speaks. When it's called, it will make everything known, festival, etc., etc. But the aspect I wanted to focus on in Luisa is when it wants to be called. So this is where we put these truths into practice. So we become living tabernacles. Another example, Blessed Conchita, who is, as mentioned, mystic in Mexico, from Mexico. So she is. She also used to call Jesus into her actions. And one day Jesus said to her, "You cooked without me. You didn't say, Jesus, come and cook with me. You did it on your own." And oh, Jesus, sorry. I remember to invite you to cook with me. Father Bruno, remember that when you cook next time. Father Yarek,
Definitely makes it work better.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Though he will still preserve your human uniqueness. So if you lack experience, if you're not a good cook, he'll respect that. But he will give you ideas to improve your cooking, so it tastes better next time. Yeah. Father Yarek. Yes, I cannot see. I think he's there. Yes. So jump in anytime, Father Yarek. Unmute yourself and jump in if you want to speak.
Well, we have great cooks, so I'm gonna pray that Jesus cooks in her. We have a great cook at the rectory, much better qualified in the skill of cooking than I am. So I can ask Jesus to be grateful in me for her cooking, and to be preparing food in her. I think we can also pray for that in the divine will.
Yes.
But yeah. Since I'm at the mic, I just want to say that I'm just very grateful that we also talk about the other mystics, and great mystic or servant of God, also Vera Grita, was the Salesian cooperator. Anna used to be a Salesian, and what strikes me is that Jesus keeps reminding us through little Luisa and Our Lady herself, and also other mystics, as you were saying, Sam, to call upon him. And prior to that, in taking on simple tasks and endeavors that sometimes we just do out of sheer routine and not mindful about. I catch myself that I'm doing something and like out of routine and not really being present to, not being mindful of what I'm doing. So calling upon Jesus also, to cook in me or to walk in me is also a reminder to not to just do things out of routine, but out of love. And so, but he's also talking about the divine will must be known, and it just surprises me that, I say it respectfully, but I talk to very zealous Salesians, very dedicated Salesians, and they kind of vaguely heard about Vera Grita. Some of them have heard about her, but when I talk to them about that, what message she received from Jesus about being living tabernacle, and they're kind of a little bit surprised by that. So again, I think for me the basic idea is to in order to get to know God's will, I must study it. I must study the mystics and apply myself to get to know them even on a very basic level, and then hope and pray for the poured in grace, the infused grace to unpack that on a deeper level. Anyhow, I just want to share that.
Thank you, Father. Yes. So yes, I mean, Vera Grita may be a good way to introduce the divine will to the Salesians, Father. Just an idea. Okay.